And we are live at FMA Discussion for episode 181. And I am here at the residence of Master Mel Orpilla of the VSM Balintawak, our niece Lineage. And just to show you, this is really cool. We have a chicken coop right here. So, giving you authentic, like, Filipino sounds during the interview. Because, like, in the Philippines, a common thing in the morning is like that. And I guess they grew up with that here too. So without further ado, go ahead, Master Mel, and you can tell us about your lineage and your origin in the art, and then also later on the history of Vallejo and everything.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us here on FMA Discussion in beautiful Vallejo, California. I have chickens, but no roosters, so I don't have that cock-a-doodle-doo first thing in the morning to wake us up. Joining me today will be two of my top students, Guru Elmer Cabrera and Gabay David Hawk, who are going to be showing us some Balintawak as we get on with the show. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Vallejo. My father was a Manong who came to America in 1926 from La Union in the Philippines, so full-blooded Ilocano. He was part of that wave that we call the Manongs, who came here basically as laborers to work in the fields or in the cities. So he arrived here as a 20-year-old and went to work in San Francisco, and then got a job here in Vallejo at Mare Island Naval Shipyard, which was the oldest naval shipyard on the Pacific coast. And it was where the ships, the U.S. ships that went to the Battle of Manila Bay in 1898 left from, and went to the Manila Bay, defeated the Spaniards, which led to the Declaration of Independence by Emilio Aguinaldo on June 12th, and gave the Philippines its independence. So Vallejo has a strong ties, historical ties to the Philippines, because not only did the Manong start coming to Vallejo in the 19 teens, but also they started coming right after the Philippine-American War, because the naval officers were bringing their nannies to Mare Island. So we are one of the oldest Filipino communities on the west coast, of not the whole United States. Older even than Stockton, of course, much older than Daly City. So there's no surprise that we have a lot of Filipino martial artists here in town. And many of us are the sons or even grandsons of those earlier pioneers. I learned Bilisan Balintawak Arnis from Grandmaster Bear Bilisan, who was the son of great Grandmaster Jose Bilisan, who was one of the top students of the founder of Balintawak, Ancion Bacon, or Venancio Ancion Bacon, in Cebu. And it was senior great Grandmaster Jose Bilisan who systemized Balintawak and gave it the grouping systems that most people know. So I'd say probably 90% of Balintawak practitioners in the world, including the great Bobby Taboada's camp, all practice the grouping. So any Balintawak that practices the groupings and teaches the groupings comes through the Bilisan lineage. I'm proud to say that there aren't that many direct students of a Bilisan teaching in the world, myself being one, and Grandmaster Carlo Campagna in Cebu being the other one. So we definitely carry the Bilisan name because that's sort of our brand. We're very proud to be direct students of a Bilisan. Myself from Grandmaster Bear, and Grandmaster Carlo from Grandmaster Bear's brother, John Bilisan, or the late John Bilisan. So in 2000, Grandmaster Bear moved to Vallejo, and at the time I was running a community center at a Seafood City shopping center, and I wanted to have Filipino martial arts there. At the time I wasn't training in Filipino martial arts. My background is actually in Kajukenbo, but I got connected with GM Bear, and we started the Bilisan Balintawak Arnis Academy in Vallejo. After training with GM Bear for about 8 to 10 years, he got a new job and couldn't teach anymore. So he gave me permission after I earned my master's certificate to start my own school, which I called Island Warriors Martial Arts. And I wanted to call it Island Warriors to pay homage to all the arts that come from the islands, not just the Philippine Islands, but also Hawaiian Islands, where my original art, Kajukenbo, comes from. And we also had Kajukenbo classes at my original dojo called the Firehouse. And Guru Elmer is one of the few students left that actually trained at the Firehouse, where we had Kajukenbo and Island Warriors Balintawak. So we've had my own Island Warriors Academy for, this is our 11th year now. We have our dojo at the Benicia Boxing and Martial Arts Dojo, right at the border of Vallejo and Benicia. And I teach three aspects of Balintawak. One is the art of Balintawak, the strikes, the defenses and counters, the disarms, the groupings, all of the things that Ancestral Bokon created. I also teach the application of the art, which is, you know, self-defense. How do you fight without a stick? Because 99.9% of the time, we're not going to be walking around going to Target or the grocery store with our stick. So we have to learn how to fight without the stick, but using Balintawak techniques and concepts and principles. And the third thing I teach is the sport of Balintawak, which is sparring, point sparring, because the only way that we can test ourselves and our skills and our reflexes and our warrior spirit is by fighting in tournaments or sparring in class. In the old days, in GM Bear's era, they would fight on the street. They would test each other against the Doce Paras or the other clubs in the Philippines, and they would test each other in the street. Or you've heard of the death matches, or as GM Bear would call the Juego Todo matches, where everything goes, you sign a contract saying no one's going to sue anybody and you fight. Well, we can't do that here in America. That's why we have to have sparring. And originally, GM Bear didn't approve of sparring. He frowned upon it because he says, in Balintawak and in fighting, there are no rules. But in tournaments, you have rules. And Balintawak would always get disqualified because we don't fight with rules. We have Grandmaster Alex Urcia here, who was one of the original Bilison Balintawak students as well, from the original class #1.
This Alex Urcia guy is a ghost, man.
Not a ghost, a ninja. A ninja. So those are the three aspects of the art that we teach here at Island Warriors Martial Arts. And I train students both at the dojo, also here at the house. So I have at the house I have an indoor dojo, and I have the backyard dojo, which is real time, real elements, grass, the sun or the smoke, the wind, the sound of the chickens, the dogs running around, everything. So this is real world here. So I train students in both places. What we're going to show you first is the basics of Balintawak, the foundation of Balintawak, which are 12 strikes. And what differentiates Bilison Balintawak from some of the other Filipino martial arts, and actually from some of the other Balintawak, is that we're a close range style and we keep our elbows clipped. And we do that because we believe that the power of our strikes comes from our body weight. Comes from our body weight. And what I loved about Grandmaster Bear is that he was also a practitioner of other sports, like myself. We played tennis and we played golf. And there was a lot of science that goes on in those sports, the body mechanics of these sports. And as I was explaining earlier, that there is nothing that a human being can wield faster than a whip. When the whip cracks, that's the tip of the whip breaking the sound barrier. The sound barrier is 600 miles per hour. So when you hear that crack, that's because that tip of the whip is going over 600 miles an hour. So in Bilison Balintawak, we treat the stick as a whip. Other Balintawaks, they block and they punch with a stick. But in that method, your stick only goes as fast as the punch. Is it going to hurt? Yeah, it's going to hurt. Can you knock someone out by doing that? Yeah, you can knock someone out. But hitting the way we hit, treating a stick as a whip, keeping our elbows clipped to our body, using our body weight at the moment of impact is going to give maximum power and maximum speed. So I'll have the two line up, face the camera.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
How do I look? You want to join us, Alex?
I'll put you in the B-roll, son.
There you go. There you go.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the 12 strikes are, and you notice that their stance is like a boxer stance. Center balance. We call this center balance. Feet shoulder width apart. Back foot on the ball of the foot, so we can move more quickly from side to side. So we call this ready position. So strike number 1 to the head. And notice when they started, they put their stick on their head here, because this is how we aim. We put the stick on the part of the body that we're trying to strike on our opponent. Strike number 2. Other side of the head. Also, notice how they shift their body weight. Every time they hit, the whole body is moving forward and down along with the action of the actual hitting of the stick. So we have maximum power going on using their body weight. 3, to the ribs. Number 4, step back to the other side of ribs. 5 is our first thrust. I'm going to step forward. And the power of the thrust isn't this motion. It's moving our body weight into our target, but also at the very end, giving a little jab. I call it the Bruce Lee 1-inch punch. 6, it's a thrust to the chest. 7, step forward, a thrust to the other side of the chest. 8, it's going to be a strike to the knee. 9, a strike to the other knee. 10, they're going to step back and thrust to the face. 11, there's step forward and strike to the thrust to the other side of the face. And then 12 is our headshot. And we end the fight and back to fighting position. So our number 12 isn't a strike like this to the crown of the head. Our strike number 12 is this, the whole front of the face, and actually even to the solar plexus. So we come out like this, boom. Because some of you know that some of us Filipinos, we have coconut heads. You hit him on the top of the head, it's just going to bounce off and make him more mad. So
you see that in boxing, won 3 medals.
There you go. There you go.
I mean, like the entire team medal, basically.
So in Vallejo, what we're trying to do with strike number 12 is split the whole front of the skull in half. That's number 12. So of course, those are our basic strikes. But Vallejo in the Billiton system, we believe that the defense and the counter is the most important of all the fundamentals, because anybody can come off the street and swing a stick, a baseball bat, throw a punch. They don't need martial arts experience. So most important for us is how to block and counter that. And there is no such thing as just a block. All blocks have to be followed up with a counter, as in all Filipino martial arts. So I'll have Guru Elmer and Gabay David demonstrate that by showing first the blocking and defense without a partner. Ready, position. So again, we're always keeping our elbows clipped, and our stick, we believe, is also our shield. So our shield always stays vertical, protecting us from the top of our head to the bottom of our midsection. Okay, so block number 1. Notice that their weight is on their back leg. The stick is opposite their back shoulder, in line with their leg. Their left hand.
You guys see that? Go ahead, continue.
And
are we good?
No,
and
we'll
he knocked. I was in front of Bank of America. Went to the ATM. He knocked on my window. He's like, "Hey, why is it such a hurry? I've been calling you." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Kuya Alex. I'm already late. I need to run to Rockland." And he's like, "Well, it was nice seeing you." And I'm like, "Hey, stay healthy." That's pretty much it. But at least he's,
Yeah, it's good. Well, he used to leave.
he just lives down. I was gonna say
three houses away.
Mm.
GM Alex,
Like
France.
1 block away, right?
Yeah, just literally 3 blocks from the corner.
After the Calavera is just
It's three
right there.
3 houses away. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That's it. Are we back?
Yeah, continue talking.
Right there, Alex.
Alex France is also part of the original group. So it was me, Alex Urcia, Alex France, Val Flores,
Armando Picawi. Yeah.
and that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. And unfortunately, we lost one. Yeah, Val Flores. But-
So we're back, and so just
right.
tell me when you're ready to.
all right, we're ready.
All right.
Okay, we're ready.
Taking videos.
It's for your fan base.
I don't know.
He's hiding. He's hiding from his
I'm just
fan base.
helping. I'm just helping.
So I was talking about the groupings. So the groupings were created by great Grandmaster Jose Billison as a way to simplify Vallejo and make it easier and safer to learn. And these groupings were also based on instances that he saw in real fights, whether it's fights on the street or fights in the dojo, fights while training. And so a lot of these are counters to these kinds of incidences that he saw in fights. So there's 5 of them. Grouping number 1 is what we call lifting and clearing. Apparently, and I'm just assuming that in all of the fights that great Grandmaster Jose witnessed, and those of you who spar a lot will know that the natural reaction for humans, probably for monkeys too, because we've got thumbs, is to grab. So it makes sense to me that one of his first groupings would be dealing with somebody grabbing a stick. And that's why we call it lifting and clearing. And in Balintawak, because we're a single stick style, we see our left hand or the non-stick hand as our secret weapon, because with an open hand you're able to do a lot of things, both offensively and defensively, either with a weapon or without a weapon. So some of the things that we do with our left hand, it looks like we're just punching or grabbing or pushing. If there was a dagger or a knife, it's the same action, the same distance, the same reflexes. So when people think Balintawak is only single stick, yeah, we train with one stick, but we also train our left hand all the time, as you saw when we're beating, but also when we start using the grouping method. So grouping number 1, Guru Elmer here is going to beat David. So he's going to grab a stick. So he grabs Gabai David's stick, and Gabai David's going to lift his hand off the stick to clear it, so that now he can hit his head, which he's going to do. And Guru Elmer blocks it. And now, in order for Gabai David to punch or to hit Guru Elmer, he's got to clear the stick out the way, which he's going to do with a clear step and a punch. And the punch, he's using this part of the stick, or about 6 inches from his fist, because we believe that from this part of the stick to the end of the stick is just an extension of the knuckle. So there's a lot of power that goes here. Not only that, but he has 6 to 8 inches of weapon, so he's not going to miss the bridge of his nose. So
let me get that from your perspective, the fighter's perspective. You said clears what?
He clears one more time. Get back. So he's going to clear with this hand here. As he's clearing, there's also tension put it on the stick. So there's 3 sources of power as Gabai David is punching Guru Elmer in the face. One source of power is the actual punch of the stick. The second source of power is the tension that's created and released from the clear. And the third source of power is the forward motion. So it's a step clear punch. Guru Elmer blocks it. He gives him the target actually, but he blocks it. Now he's going to bring that stick down on the other side. And he grabs the stick again. So Gabai David has to lift the stick, his hand off the stick, and he's going to punch him. So when he did that, he didn't retract his hand and punch. It's all one motion. He's using again his core and his legs to generate that speed and power. Boom. And Guru Elmer blocks it. And in order again for Gabai David to punch him in the face, he has to clear it. So he's going to push down, clear, strike to the face, and they're going to finish off this grouping with a 9, a 2, and a 1. Grouping number 1. And we got some background music. All right. Would you do it again? Let's flow through it. Grouping number 1. That's grouping number 1. Grouping number 2, it's how to move your body against strikes from the puño. So I like to call it all about the puño, because you're blocking the puño and now you're moving your body. So again, once you feed him, so Guru Elmer is going to grab Gabai David's stick, and he's going to give him a puño strike to the side of his head. And Gabai David's going to block it with a root block. And we use a root block because if Guru Elmer wanted to go up and over, he's controlled by this root block here. Also, his elbow is in the middle of his body, which gives him maximum support. So David's going to clear him. And Guru Elmer's going to give another strike to the wrist, which he's going to block. He's going to lift, punch, clear, punch, and we're going to finish it off again. That's grouping number 2. Once you flow through that. Grouping number 3 is an overhead. Blocking overhead, and then 2 quick blocks and counters to the left side of the body.
Francisco Tarup yelled out, "Yell at him, thundersticks." Just kidding.
What's that?
Francisco Tarup was like,
Oh, he was a thunderstick.
thundersticks. Just kidding. Yeah.
Francisco, I just got notice from my business partner in India. They're shipping the new sticks this week.
Nice.
So we might have some thundersticks in stock within the next 2 weeks or so. So I'll be able to get back to carving. I'll talk about that later. So grouping number 3 is blocking a strong overhead strike and then 2 quick blocks to the left side of the body. So Guru Elmer's going to give him a block, a strike, and 2 quick. One more time. Which looks like a very simple, basic block. There's a lot going on here. As David is blocking, he's also using his arms to absorb that heavy block. This may not be an arnis stick. This might be a metal pipe. This might be a baseball bat. Might be a 2x4. If that was the case, it might break the stick. So he has to absorb it with his arms. He's also absorbing it with his back and with his legs. At the same time, keeping distance between the stick and his head. So he's not blocking it like this because he can get hit. It's this one. One more time. That's grouping number 3. Grouping number 4 is a defense against a stab to the middle of the chest and an abanico. Now I'm going to feed Guru Elmer. So I'm going to start with a stab to the middle of the chest. He's going to parry it into a number 2 block. And then he's going to counter. And I'm going to give him my abanico. Boom. Counters. Number 5. Done. So I haven't seen too many Filipino martial arts that has a block and counter to the abanico. And that's why I love this grouping. In order to block the abanico, you have to go from this strike or this block to this block very quickly, because the abanico, it's not a kill shot, it's just a stun shot, but it's still very fast. So in order to go from this block to the 1 block, you have to use centrifugal force. So I'm creating that by throwing my upper body, my stick first, and my feet follow. By doing this, I'm protecting my head the whole way. So it looks like this. And I'll have Guru Elmer demonstrate it. Let's do it. So it's a very fast grouping. Grouping number 5. Grouping number 5 is how to block and counter a stick and a punch coming at the same time. Because in a fight, even in a stick fight, there is no rule that says you're only going to fight with a stick. There are no rules in fighting. You can fight with a stick, you can fight with the hands, you can fight with the feet, you can fight with a weapon. So in grouping number 5, we are now teaching the student how to block a stick and a punch at the same time. So from this point on, I'm going to be feeding him the stick, and I'm going to be throwing different punches. So in the first sequence, giving him a low punch. So he's blocking my stick at the same time and using his elbow and his weight to block this low punch. He's going to clear and control my stick. Counter, block and counter. Second one, I'm going to punch him in the chest. Boom. Again, clear. Third one's to the head. And double. Boom, boom. So in real time, it looks like this. And that's the 5 groupings.
Is it okay to do it one more time, real time?
Sure. Now, because we come from the Bilison lineage that actually created the groupings, my feeling is, why stop at 5 groupings? So, to carry on the legacy of the Bilison's creation of the groupings, we are working on new groupings. So, grouping number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to end at grouping number 12. So, as the students progress to the completion, well, not completion, the fully qualified instructor, which is level 8, they have to demonstrate a new grouping to pass that level. So Guru Elmer here has developed grouping number 7. I've done grouping number 6. We're at grouping number 10. Maybe in another video, we'll show you our final 6 or 7 groupings, because we're still fine-tuning them at this point. And of course, one of the other beauties of Balintawak is our ability to do disarm. So I'm going to bring back Gabbai David, and we'll do some disarms. So hold on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So in the teaching of the disarms, one of the first things that Grandmaster Bear wanted to point out was the gate. The stick can only come out through the gate, through however means. It can only come out through the gate. Can't come out through the back of the gate. There's no opening there. Only through the gate. So what we teach are just the concepts of the gate. And I feel that there are probably an infinite number of disarms, because everyone thinks different, reacts different, and has different body types.
So by gate, essentially you mean the grip.
The fingers, coming out the fingers, the grip. So it's more than just a grip. It's this gate, or remember the old days? Close, open, close, open. So open.
So like
open
little,
gate,
so like little
gate.
babies.
Yeah. So we're bringing it through that gate.
And so in that case, you don't really care what axis it is. What you care about is this part. You don't care what central axis of rotation the hand is. It can get disarmed here. Get disarmed there.
Yes.
It can get disarmed there.
Yes. Different ways to manipulate that gate. And we manipulate the gate to halfway open to make it easier to disarm it. Also, another concept of Bilison is the concept of opposing motion. So if I'm pushing, I'm pulling. If I'm pulling, I'm pushing. If I'm going up, I'm going down. So again, minimum effort with maximum results. So we're not wasting our energy. So grouping number 1, this is just, we call, disarm number 1, we call this our basic number 1. So let's turn around so you can see it. So as David feeds Guru Elmer on strike number 1, he's going to block it, and then he's going to grab it, and then he's going to turn his body at the same time, opening up this gate here. And their knuckles are touching, so he's going to pull and punch out at the same time. There's the disarm, and he's going to follow up with 3 strikes. 1, 2. Grandmaster Bear taught us that after every disarm, we should have 3 strikes. And the 3rd strike should always be our number 12. The first 2 are just stun strikes. The last one is the finishing strike. Because even when you disarm somebody, the fight's not over. It's not over. because a good fighter is gonna try to counter that and come back at you. So one more time. There you go. I'm going to demonstrate disarm number 2 because I've modified it a little bit from when Grandmaster Bear taught me. So when Guru Elmer feeds me strike number 2, I'm going to block it just like a normal block, and then I'm going to move my hand and my stick tight on his grip, and I'm going to pull, and I'm going to push, but move in a circular motion and go straight into the first strike. 1, 2, 3. But notice I also have him in a wrist lock here, so if I want to bring it to the ground, I have him here as well.
Is that you know, there was like a famous photo of Anchon Bacon in the cover.
Yes.
Where the guy was like, "Is that it? Is that
No,
what you just
that's
did?"
not it. That's not it. But let me do that one more time.
Hold on a second.
When I'm teaching disarms, what's always in the back of my mind is teaching a disarm that's harder to counter. So this disarm is very difficult to counter because it goes straight from the disarm into a strike. There is no pause. In the old ways, we would do it like this. We block, and we counter, and then we hit. But in doing this, I'm open here, so he can counter me right away. But from this position here,
Show me, yeah. Show me in real time, like, you know, doing it correctly.
no time to counter. No time to counter.
Awesome.
I'm going to show grouping, or keep on calling grouping. Disarm number 5. So give me disarm number 5 here. So what we learned is that disarm number 5 was Anchon Bacon's favorite disarm.
Oh,
Favorite disarm. And it was, I feel it was his favorite disarm because there are so many elements of what makes Valentawak within this disarm. So if Guru Elmer gives me number 5, there you go. I block it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to control the stick on the other side. Yeah. I'm going to control the stick. So this is controlling stick. He cannot move his stick. I'm controlling his stick. So one more time. Controlling his stick. Now,
let me go on this side.
so now I'm going to actually do the disarm. You notice that my stance, I'm in a neutral stance. Not too much weight forward, not too much weight backward. So this is the first nuance that I think Anchon Bacon enjoyed about this disarm, because there's a couple of things going on here. There's actually 3 things going on. 1 is the actual disarm. 2 is what we call the jerk. And 3 is a puño strike to the ribs. All in one movement. So the jerk jerks the head back to the student, or the partner sees stars for just a split second to disorient them. So there's no hit, it's just the whiplash motion. So from this position now, in order for me to hit his head the second time, I have to clear this hand, which I'm also going to create a whiplash motion by tossing it out and opening up, boom, and then the third hit. So in real time, boom, boom, boom. Disarm number 5. All the students have to learn disarm number 5.
That's wonderful.
How about you guys demonstrate disarm number 9? 9. Boom. There you go. Whoever wants to do it, I don't care. Nope. That's the 8. 9. Other side. There you go. So Guru Elmer, nope. Guru Elmer is blocking a number 9 strike by David, and then immediately he's going to push down with his stick hand and pull up with his empty hand, pop it out, and then he's going to finish up with the 3 strikes. 1, 2, 3. In real time. So those are just some basic disarms. And again, there's an infinite number of ways to do the disarms. There is no one disarm per strike. There are multiple disarms per strikes. And it's up to the creativity and the knowledge and the training of the students. But the other thing that Balintawak is known for is the counter to the counters. So this is where I think we take Balintawak to another level of mental acuteness. And it's like a chess game. It's trying to predict and react to your partner's next move. So this is always fun to do with the grouping number or the disarm number 3. So I'm going to give Guru Elmer the number 3 strike. He's going to block it, and then he's going to disarm. Boom. So the counter to that disarm has to happen before he fully executes the disarm. So there's several counters you can do here. My counter that I like to do is just to grab him here, pull this, and lock him here.
Was that the one in the book?
That's not the one in the book. That's not the one in the book. So, but Guru Elmer can counter that counter. So I give him the number 3. He's going for the disarm. I'm going to counter it. And he's now, before I fully execute my counter, he's going to counter my counter. Boom. And we can just play that all day long until someone is defeated. So now I'm going to counter his counter to my counter. Boom. It's a matter of just reflex, timing, and just very minute, really minute moves.
Micro movements.
Micro movement. And it's going below or above or around. Very little effort. We're not breathing hard. Well, Guru Elmer's sweating like a stuck pig, but that's Guru Elmer.
So one of the questions I just got right now, that's why I keep on checking my phone. You know what I mean? Because I'm getting DMs. What's your other background? Like, one thing that we're so excited about getting you an FMA discussion, it's not only your Disarm Balintawak line, it's the original grouping method essentially, but also your knowledge about the tribal tattoos, because you're a part of that collective, which is say the name again, sir.
Tatak ng apat na alon, or mark of 4 waves.
Mark of 4
so
waves.
the 4 waves are the 4 waves of people who migrated to the Philippines, starting with the Negritos or the Austronesians. And so the majority of the indigenous tribes are in the northern part of the Philippines, in the Cordillera Mountains. And I call those Filipinos the authentic Filipinos because they were never Christianized, because it was so difficult to get up to the Cordilleras, and because the Ifugaos, the Kalingas, the Bontocs, the Ibanags, these were all fierce warrior fighting tribes, and they protected their trails going to their villages and up the mountain fiercely. I trace my tribal lineage to the Ifugao tribe. So the Ifugao tribe at one time were sent to the bottom of the trailhead that went up from the ocean to Baguio, to the mountains, to protect that trail from the Spaniards who were trying to go up to the mountains to steal the gold and silver. So the Ifugaos sent their best warriors to the trailhead. And the trailhead happened to be in my father's ancestral town called Bawang La Union. And from that trailhead, where the warriors were basically stationed to protect it, that's where our family grew from. So they are descended from the original Ifugao warriors that were sent to protect that trailhead. Today, that trail is still there, from Bawang to Baguio. Do you know what it is? Who's been there?
I've been there, but I don't know.
It's the Nagilian Highway. Yeah.
So it's like right by Session Road, huh?
So this is the Nagilian Highway. So that highway originally was an Igorot trail up the mountain.
Yeah.
But then it became the Nagilian Highway, which is still used today as a major entry point from La Union up to Baguio, which, by the way, is Vallejo's sister city.
So that's what I want to talk about. Repeat what you said again. It's the sister city to Vallejo?
Baguio is the sister city of Vallejo. Vallejo has 7 sister cities. Baguio is our sister city in the Philippines.
What's so weird is just all these kind of odd synchronicities, as you were saying, because
But not necessarily. If you understand the history of Filipino-American migration from the Philippines, most of those originally coming were Ilocanos, because the northern part of the Philippines was the most economically depressed of all the areas of the Philippines. So when you're economically depressed, you immigrate or you migrate to places where they have jobs. So those Ilocanos started coming to Hawaii and then to California. We didn't have a lot of Tagalogs when I grew up. Why? Because Manila, as a major economic center in the Philippines, people weren't starving. People had jobs. They were, they didn't need to immigrate because they were doing fine financially. But the Ilocano regions, in Bohol and certain Visayan Islands, they were the first ones to immigrate to America starting in 1906. And so a lot of Vallejo's early Filipino population actually came from the northern part of the Philippines with ties to Baguio. So it really isn't surprising once you understand who came to Vallejo first and why we have so many Ilocanos here. Because once the Ilocanos started settling here, what do we do, especially after 1965 when they changed the immigration quotas from previously was unlimited up till 1935, no quotas, and then from 35 to 46, 100 per year. But then in 1965, it was changed to 20,000 per year. So when you already have families living here and prospering here in Vallejo, what do you do when the immigration gates open up? You petition your families to join you. So you're increasing the numbers of people from your home provinces or your hometown. So the Ilocano population in Vallejo was probably the biggest initial population of Filipinos at one time.
So since we're having this conversation, I guess I just would want you, please, to repeat it to the viewer, with your grace, which is I was making a comment I came to see, wow, Vallejo's so pretty, and I was thinking about Stockton, Vallejo. Vallejo had earlier Filipino immigrants than Stockton, and you were going over that with me.
Yes. So Vallejo's ties to the Philippines started in 1898 because Vallejo is home to Mare Island Naval Shipyard, which is the largest naval shipyard on the Pacific coast. And it was at Vallejo's Mare Island Naval Shipyard where some of the ships were made and some of the ships were outfitted to go across the ocean to the Battle of Manila Bay in May of 1898 at the outbreak of the Spanish-American War. So when you're learning about Philippine history in June 12, 1898, Vallejo had a direct relationship to that Declaration of Independence because Spain was defeated by the American Naval Armada, which left from Vallejo and went to Manila Bay in May of 1898. And after that, some of the ships remained there, especially when the Philippine-American War started in February 1899. And these naval officers that were stationed in the Philippines during this part of the war then came back to Mare Island, sometimes bringing their Filipino nannies. And so some of our earlier Filipino families have their grandparents or their great-grandparents on Mare Island as the nannies to these naval officers. Also, during the Philippine-American War, there were Buffalo soldiers fighting in the Philippines, the black soldiers from mainly Louisiana, who first fought in Cuba and then Puerto Rico, and then were sent to the Philippines during the Philippine-American War. And when these black soldiers, the Buffalo soldiers, saw the treatment of Filipinos by the white soldiers, calling them names like gooks, brown, monkeys, and the N-word, of course, it reminded them of the racism they were still experiencing here in America and questioned their loyalty to this country. And why are they fighting for a country that are treating these people who look like them the same way that their people were being treated back in America? And so, as you know, many of these Buffalo soldiers deserted their posts, which is the first time and only time in U.S. military history that they did it. And then they went to help the Filipinos fight the Americans, their own people. And after the war ended, some of these Buffalo soldiers either married women and stayed and lived the rest of their lives in the Philippines, or they brought their wives to America, to Vallejo, as some of America's first war brides. So Vallejo's first Filipino family was a marriage between a Buffalo soldier out of Louisiana named George Washington Carter Jr. and a Filipino woman from Cavite named Maria Martinez. They had their first daughter in the Philippines, and then in 1912, they moved to Vallejo when George Washington Carter got a job as a carpenter at Mare Island. And he wanted to come back to America because the crocodiles kept on eating their pigs at their pig farm. And those of you who know about crocodiles in the Philippines, the saltwater crocodiles, some of the biggest crocodiles in the world.
I mean, keeping on the real, I mean, it's like a real life Jurassic Park. Some of them are the length of a freaking school bus.
Yeah, they are huge. They are huge. So we got a job at Mare Island, and then their second daughter, Alice, was born here in Vallejo in 1915. So when you talk about Filipinos in America, you know, Vallejo probably had one of the earliest Filipinas being born in America in 1915, and she was half African American and half Filipino.
So this was basically like a decade and a half a decade, so a decade or half a decade before the first settlers in Stockton, basically.
Right. So Stockton is the agricultural community, and at one time it had the largest Filipino community in the United States because that's where the heart of the agricultural industry in California was in the Central Valley. And so Filipinos settled there in large numbers. But that really wasn't until the 1920s and 30s when Filipinos started being recruited to work in these big farms out there. But Vallejo already had a family. And the other interesting thing about Vallejo was that when the Filipinos came here, they got jobs at Mare Island. And Mare Island paid good wages. We're not talking like 10 cents an hour like the Filipinos being paid in the farms, but they were being paid 75 cents an hour, $1 an hour. They had regular shifts, 8-hour shifts. They had sick leave. They had vacation. They had benefits. So the Filipinos here were financially, economically very stable. They didn't have to rely on jobs based on seasons and what was being harvested then. So they can settle down. They had the financial means to settle down, and they had the economic stability to stable down. So Vallejo not only became a very stable and large Filipino community, but it became a place where Filipinos wanted to establish their families for future generations because of that economic stability provided by Mare Island, later on the Navy, and then later on when immigration quotas changed, hospitals and medical facilities for their wives to work in. So a typical Filipino family here is a retired U.S. Navy father who went to work for the post office, married to a wife who's a nurse at Kaiser. So when you think about all of that happening, financially, Filipinos are doing well over here. And Kuya Alex knows that, you know, without Filipinos in Vallejo would be bankrupt. Yep. We operate a lot of businesses here. We buy the houses. We support the churches. You know, we add to the tax base. So very, very unique and Filipino community here in the United States. But going back to the tattoos, we got kind of sidetracked. What I do is I help Filipinos understand that there is not one Filipino tattoo, that the tattoos are based on tribes. And I explained earlier, I'm from the Ifugao tribe. So the Ifugaos have very specific tattoo patterns as they're put on the skin. And the reason why all the tribes have different patterns, although the symbols may look the same, the way that they're put on the skin is a different pattern design. And that's because, you know, when a bunch of Filipinos are fighting in a jungle, we all look the same in the shadows, but our tattoos are different. So at the end of the battle, well, during the battle, you know who's on that side and who's on this side based on their tattoo patterns. But after the fight, if you have a bunch of Filipinos with no heads on them, how do you know if that's Julius or that's Alex or that's June or that's Boy? You don't know because their head is missing. You know, usually we identify each other by our faces. But if your head is gone, how you know who's that? But you know because of their tattoos. And you bring them back to your village and you do your ceremony to honor their death. And the heads were taken back to the other tribe as a war trophy. So if you see old pictures of the tribes at the turn of the century, most of the warriors had skulls outside of their bahay kubos or their huts as war trophies. So only the warriors were allowed the tattoos. You couldn't just say, hey, I want a tattoo. You had to earn the tattoo by participating or fighting in some type of tribal war or any kind of war against the enemy. So many young men earned their tattoos during World War II by killing Japanese as well. So the more tattoos you had, the more fights you were participated in. But for us here in America, with our tribe, we know we can't take heads literally. We know that. What we do, how we interpret that is taking heads to impart knowledge. So I just got a few heads here today. So I'm gonna have to get more tattoo. I have to find some ink. But my tattoos, the traditional tattoo is a chaklog.
Ling lingo.
Yes. So the ling lingo is one of the symbols that we have in our tribe as sort of a marker. The other mark on our tribe is the mark of the 4 waves. So only real tribe members of our group have this mark on their leg. So the tattoos, you're probably asking, were they done with a machine or were they tapped? They're done both ways. So half of my tattoos were done with a machine, the other half were tapped.
And this one is just for your group. The
yes,
group of the
this
4
marks,
waves.
yeah. So this, you see the 4 waves.
I just want to see again. I'm sorry I didn't capture what the thing was. Show me the ling lingo.
This is ling lingo. This is the centipede. These are the scorpions. These are our villages. These are our ancestors. I'm celebrating after war dance. This is the warrior's ladder, which guides us to the afterlife. They have the carabao, which symbolizes strength, loyalty, hard work, and they have dogs. So the Ifugals believe that you always have 3 dogs. One dog is your companion. The other dog helps you hunt, provide food. And the third dog is your guide in the afterlife. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I've always had 3 dogs. Always had 3 dogs. I never knew why.
It's a similar concept to Anubis, basically. Yeah.
And then the Bulul, which is on this arm here, which is our rice god. So he's a provider of life because in the Cordillera and the mountains and the rice terraces, without rice, you're dead. So rice, the Bulul provides life. So there are 7 different rituals throughout the rice planting and growing and harvesting season that is supposed to protect the rice or increase its bounty. So I have quite a collection of Bululs here inside my house.
And we're going to shoot that when we have some time. I was freaked out at first. I'm like, oh no, Bulul.
No, the Bulul is not to be feared. The Bulul is to be worshipped.
It's the Anito.
Yeah. So all of the members of our tribe, in order to get the tattoos, you have to do the research. Where are your ancestors from in the Philippines? And once we determine that, we can tell you the tribes within a 50-mile radius of your ancestral hometown. And then you have to determine through spiritual connections or family relationships which tribe is yours. And then we start to interview about your personal values and characteristics. And then we provide the symbols for your tattoo. So each tattoo is very specific to that person based on that person's specific tribe.
Hey, Dean, I got to drive maybe 2 more trips here in NorCal, because this guy's like a encyclopedia of Filipino history in the U.S. Dang. Yeah, we can't just have one episode with you in here, sir. Yeah, I got to come back.
So I don't know if we're out of time. If there's anything else you want me to talk about, we can't show everything within Balintawak.
I asked the questions that were sent to me, all of them already. So if you have any questions for the Guru Mel, he does have somewhere to go after this, kind of like not a fiesta, but it's kind of similar.
A community festival. So we'll be doing a demo this afternoon with some other students, and my students are every size, ethnicity, age. My oldest student is 80 years old. My youngest student is 7 years old. We pride ourselves in having great fighters. So our students have won many tournaments. We host a tournament every year called the Vallejo FMA Goodwill Tournament. This year will be on October 2nd on the Vallejo waterfront. We were the first city to organize outdoor Filipino martial arts tournaments at major Filipino festivals for the masses. And we did that because a lot of Filipino martial arts tournaments, this, are done inside gyms or hotel ballrooms, and only people watching it or participating are Filipino martial artists. How are we going to promote our arts if nobody sees it, including Filipinos? So we brought it to our Vallejo Pista Sanayo, and sometimes there's 10,000, 15,000 people at this festival. And for Filipinos, even, it's the first time they've seen Filipino martial arts. So we have padded stick fighting, I'm proud to say that our junior fighters have always swept most of the junior divisions. Our men's fighters also done quite well. Guru Elmer was on our third place winning team the last time we had this tournament. And we're going to do it again on October 2nd in Vallejo. So if you're around, if you want to test your skills, and it's such a fun atmosphere. Everyone does it in the spirit of fellowship and brotherhood. Afterwards, we usually go to Grandmaster Michael Giron's house, who's a few blocks away from here, and we break bread and we talk about and laugh about the day. But nobody gets angry. Nobody's got bad blood. It's all about the fellowship.
Please send the questions now because I'm going to ask my last two. So for the people viewing the episode now live, we had 37 viewership before we cut off, but I don't know how many people are watching now. I do have to ask, like, essentially, you were talking about the port is where they launched the ships that basically dropped the Spanish Armada, right?
Yes.
Got rid of it in Manila Bay. Talk about the show that you have in there. Like, you saying you actually do demos right by the beachfront?
Yes. So I'm going to call it a beach. We call it the waterfront.
Yeah.
So there's a big park on the waterfront. So separating Vallejo from Mare Island is the Mare Island Channel, which is connected to the Napa River on one end and to San Pablo and San Francisco Bay on the other end. So you have Vallejo on this side, and half a mile across the channel is Mare Island. And so when we do our festival, Pieces and Island, when we do our tournament, we're probably the only Filipino festival in the whole United States that is doing it at a place where we can visually see and tangibly be connected to a place that led to that actual Declaration of Independence on June 12, 1898. So for me, that makes it not only profound, but very historical that we are here in Vallejo doing these things, honoring our history and our heritage at a place that we live in today that had a direct connection to the Philippines since 1898. I don't think there are very many other Filipino communities that can claim that.
And even within here in Vallejo, there's like a massive overrepresentation. I won't say overrepresentation.
We have about 30,000 Filipinos in Vallejo with a population of about 120. We've had Filipino mayors. Right now we have three Filipinos on the city council. We have a Filipino on the school board. I work for a U.S. congressman. So politically, Vallejo is probably one of the most politically empowered Filipino communities anywhere on the mainland.
In terms of that's what the thing. In terms of like FMA, how many like different systems and schools are here?
We have us. We have Original Girona Eskrima. We have Kaju Eskrima. I know we have a Combatan. We have Doce Fares. We have what else am I missing? We have Tres Manos. Who?
Bando Castillo's mixed combatives.
Mixed combatives, which is a combination of different styles.
Combatan and
Little Balintuak.
Yeah.
So, and there are hybrids of different styles here as well. But Vallejo is, I think, after Stockton, or maybe we're catching up to Stockton, has as many Filipino martial arts schools and instructors as anywhere else in the country. Wouldn't you think so, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Combatan in GM Enel's school. Jerry teaches that. Jerry Lasola.
That's right. So, but the beautiful thing about having all these Filipino martial artists here in town is we have a brotherhood. There is no rivalry. There is no rivalry. We all break bread together when we do seminars, which is usually called our gathering of words. We do it collectively together. Is there a leader? There really isn't a leader. Are there respected elders? There's definitely respected elders. Great Senior Grandmaster Emil Bautista, Grandmaster Michael Giron. So we do have respected elders. Are there leaders? No, I think we're all leaders because we all work together.
I am. That makes me happy to hear that like the era of like the gang violence has like left, and so there's no like cross system rivalry where like I challenge you to a duel or there's actual shootouts.
That's what our tournaments are.
That's
for.
awesome.
We do it in a friendly environment, controlled environment, in a spirit of brothers. So we call it the Vallejo FMA Goodwill Games. I don't think I've ever seen anyone lose their temper at these games, ever. I think one time, two big guys were tussling. They tussled a little bit, but afterwards, after you call break, no big deal. It's just in the heat of the moment. But no rivalries. You know, a lot of people share their schools. So with Grandmaster, Senior Grandmaster Emil Bautista with the Cachicambo Self-Defense Institute, which has been in operation since 1968. He welcomes other Filipino martial arts to teach there.
I have to apologize, sir. I didn't mean like to make you like sound old when I said like you've been practicing, because you just known him since the 60s.
Yeah, yeah.
When you were a kid.
No, I started training in 1970 to 72, but I've known Senior Grandmaster Emil Bautista since I was a kid because we're related. Our fathers worked together in Mare Island. But you know, he's family. I was with him last night. Other Filipino martial artists are always welcome to train in his dojo. Same thing at our dojo. We've hosted seminars and classes there with other styles. So it's a feeling of brotherhood out here. There's no rivalry. There's no egos, not outwardly anyways. But you know, we just have fun doing things together.
We only fight over food.
Yeah,
That's why we're so chubby for you, Alex.
we only fight about who's going to pay for the next round of beers. That's it. That's why we do Thirsty Thursday at Senior Grandmaster Michael's house, because bring your own beer.
Yep.
Master Mel, so final one that I have is that, can you talk about like your supplies? Like where you get your, because you look at your awesome sticks. Like can you show that up close to the camera?
Sure.
And
So in part of my Island Warriors empire, besides
because just a little bit closer is okay, sir.
besides teaching Balintawak,
you could see the detail about that distance.
besides teaching Balintawak, is how do I incorporate the tattoos, which are warrior symbols, with martial arts? And one of the ways I did that was by carving traditional Filipino warrior tattoo patterns onto Calcutta bamboo sticks. So the Calcutta bamboo actually comes from India. It's the only place that it's grown. And as you can see, it's not just tapered, it is solid. There is no hole in the stick. And as you can hear,
A pair of those.
it is solid. This will last longer, 10 times as long as rattan. And you're right, it's tapered. So what's so important about a tapered stick? It's the balance. It makes it faster. So not only are these sticks faster and harder and last longer, but we've imparted, or I've imparted, the fighting spirit of our warrior ancestors into the sticks. So most of my sticks, pretty much all my sticks, I put this pattern here. You can see it. This is what we call the ipit ipit, the ipit ipit, which is a scorpion. So the scorpion is traditionally a true Filipino warrior pattern, because the scorpion, in spite of its size, and with the exception of us here, most Filipinos are small. So with the exception of us here, like the scorpion is fast, hits hard, and is deadly. So that's the true sign of a Filipino warrior.
Oh, Sachi of Elsai Lescats is saying he's a very proud owner of those amazing sticks.
Well, thank you, Sachi. Thank you, Sachi. And I have, you know, I've gifted the stick to other grandmasters and masters, but some of them say, Master Mel, we don't want to hit with it because it's too nice. I'm just going to put it on my wall. That's you, Grandmaster Rene Latosa. Use the sticks. That's why I gave it to you. I also put things like Baybayin on it. So this is Orpilla in Baybayin, or Balintawak in Baybayin, to identify our lineage in the stick. Other symbols I put are the ahas, or the snake. Again, another warrior symbol. Or the centipede, the gayaman. The centipede with all the legs represents the members of the tribe, which are fighting for one cause, which is to protect the village. The gayaman also is a protective symbol. So in war, you're protected from harm. And then lastly, I like to put what I call the ta'ao, which is the people, our ancestors, to show our connectedness through generations, through culture, through time, our connectedness to our ancestors. So that's what this is here on the bottom.
And just like a cool JT Banger, he is growing food in his backyard, Ilocano style, you know, because my parents like that too. You have like
Pinakbit garden.
yeah, your pinakbit. You know, you got the pinakbit garden like already. So this is just, yeah. So if y'all don't have any more questions, like, I'm good because I've run out of things to ask. How about you guys? You have any questions for him? Lex?
No. Thank you for your
Okay.
help.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And that's it. Episode 181 signing out at FMA Discussion. Look forward to tomorrow. I don't think we could shoot that live because we don't have no main internet source where GM and Mill is at.
The
So
internet
that will be a recorded session. And I'll upload that on YouTube and it'll be in high def.
It's really, really.
Dial up.
No, it's. I think it's a signal because
unincorporated.
Yeah, when you go there and you're looking at your phone, it doesn't load. And I'm like, why is this place
I
dead?
don't think they have any.
You might be, it could be in a dead zone, a
Yeah.
cell dead zone too.
Yeah,
There's no towers. It's
yeah. It's